Well, welcome to the FDU Rothman Institute Zoom at Noon program, our March 19th program. Um, we are on Dale Caldwell. I'm a professor and executive director of the Rothman Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and excited to have Mark Iorio, founder of the Mega Group and managing partner, BCAT Partners, LLC, who I've gotten to know over the last few months really well. Mark, welcome to you.
Thanks, Dale. I appreciate you having me on. Really do. It's great,
Yeah,
man.
no, just appreciate having it. There's a lot of good information we're going to talk about today. So let me start out by, I just want to introduce, for those that don't know the Rothman Institute, just want to start out, say a little bit about who we are. Our mission is to support, promote, and research entrepreneurship with a special focus on family and veteran businesses. We focus on all types of entrepreneurship, but that's really where our focus is. We wouldn't exist without some wonderful sponsors. The TD Bank Charitable Foundation. Provident Bank is a fantastic sponsor, and the Commerce and Industry Association of New Jersey. Tony Russo oftentimes stops in and gives this kind of a legislative update, and others, and they've just been a great partner for the foundation. One of the things we're most proud of is we last year started something called Family Business Week, which is the fourth week in October, but we encourage people to support family businesses every day of the year. And so you can find out more about this if you look up familybusinessweek.com, and an opportunity to buy, especially for restaurants, some gift cards. We want to support our entrepreneurs and our restaurants any way that we can. I do a TV show called Family Business World. Mark can tell a little bit about his TV shows that he does, both at RVN TV and now on Roku TV. So, always looking for great guests, both of us. And Mark, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that to see if anybody in our audience would be a great guest. And my show comes on at 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. on Thursdays. One of the programs that was really grown that we're very proud of is Veterans Launching Ventures. It's a program where we work with veterans or the immediate family members of veterans and take them through an 8-week program, a very intensive 8-week program to develop a business plan and really set their business on sailing and on fire to go forward. And there's some more information about that on veteranbusinessworld.com. One of the other things is this video and others are kept on our YouTube page, the Rothman Institute of Entrepreneurship YouTube channel. And so if you missed this, or there's an old show that you wanted to see, we refer people there, or we'll send off videos. But there's some really, really great content. No matter what kind of business issue you're dealing with, odds are we have some kind of discussion about that. And though today we'll add to it. I don't know that we've done, Mark, that we've done something just like what we're going to talk about today. One of our signature programs is the annual New Jersey Family Business of the Year. This year, every year in October, we do this event. Laura Mashtaler from Black Swan Espresso was the new Family Business of the Year. Our under 10 million in sales business of the year, Dennis McCullough from McCullough Contracting. And our over 10 million business of the year is Norwalt Design, Mike Seitel, and the team there. So again, we congratulate them, and what just wonderful people and wonderful businesses. So one of the things, we've done a lot of thought leadership, a lot of articles about entrepreneurship and entrepreneur zones and other things. So we're happy to share some of that with you. And we can now jump right into Mark Iorio. And so Mark, I'll stop sharing and you should be able to share your slides.
Sounds great, Dale. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right. Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning here and start with what we are as an organization and who we are as an organization and what we do. We basically help organizations align people with their purpose. The name of our company is the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit, BCAT Partners. Aligning your people with your purpose oftentimes is not an easy task. We have a process that we follow that is very scientific and systematic. When you don't have alignment in your organization, there's a whole number of things that occur. You see higher waste, cost, turnover, lower performance, lower revenue, lower profits. It looks like people are really busy, but nothing ever really changes in the organization. This all leads to basically a lower valuation in the organization, Dale.
Hmm.
With purpose and as a role model, basically we have four factors in developing the purpose of an organization, and there's a scientific methodology here. If you were to take a PET scan of a person's brain, the frontal cortex,
Right.
there are four areas in that frontal cortex that really light up when you use words like precision or resolve or innovation or harmony.
Interesting.
And these are intrinsic motivators. This is the culture and the brand, or the people and the purpose of
Hmm.
the organization. They're intrinsic and expressed behaviors. Um, we like to talk about it as though we connect the head with the heart here.
Right, right. Mark, can you go back to that last slide? Because that's really, really important stuff that you have there. I like that. So the intrinsic motives, so precision, resolve, innovation, and harmony. So these are, so when you say intrinsic, and I always ask the basic questions, because I know some people are thinking that. So say a little more about that. So intrinsic is just natural to you? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's the culture of the organization, Dale. It's the people that, how they act, how they behave inside the organization, how they talk to one another, with the language they use, the graphics that you use when you're dealing with your website or collateral material, or maybe even pictures on the wall. It's the whole culture of the organization. People oftentimes confuse culture with, or purpose with, perks.
Right.
Let's put a foosball table or a ping pong
Mm,
table in the
mm.
lunchroom. That's not what that's all about. It's how we act toward one another. It's
So,
that.
so, so this sounds like big company stuff. This is Fortune 500 company stuff. Does this apply to the mom and pop shop, the three-person company?
We've done 9,700 of these over the last 8 years, and we've had a handful of organizations that are 2 or 3 people,
Wow. Okay.
4 or 5 small person companies,
Okay.
all the way up to organizations like Six Flags, HBO, and divisions of NBC Universal. So it works for every company. It works for nonprofits. It works for for-profits. It works for multi-generational family-run businesses, franchises, a whole host of businesses. We're really agnostic to the size of the organization, Dale.
So that's wonderful. But and again, I just wanted to get that out of the way so that people know this applies to you, no matter what size company you have. This is so important for your growth. And the other thing you said is valuation. Companies don't value, they may not want to be sold, but you've got to continue to value your business. And the business has to be of value besides the owner.
Right,
So that's
exactly.
important. Yep.
Yep. So again, we connect the head with the heart. This is the
Mhm.
most important part of this, because the brand is really the intellectual side of how you think and how you act. The culture of the organization's how we feel toward one another, and how we treat one another, and how we treat our prospects and our clients, and the people that we deal with, our suppliers. And what we talk often about is those 4 quadrants right there in the middle: that
Mhm.
precision, resolve, harmony, and innovation. And if I were to show you a PET scan of our frontal cortex, you would see that those 4 areas do light up when you use words like expert or
Mhm.
precision, resolve, driver, innovation, creator, caretaker, harmony. And I'm going to show you how we start the process.
Yeah.
We start this process, we call it a step 0, because without this is the very, very beginning of how you begin the BCAT process.
Okay.
We want you to imagine your organization, your entire team, as though it were a single person doing its best work on its best day, keeping all of its promises and achieving all of its goals.
Mhm.
Imagine, what would that person be like? And a
Interesting.
lot of people, a lot of organizations, Dale, do not do this. They kind of go into an office and they kind of they either meander, they
Right.
go in and punch a clock. There's really no purpose in the organization. The whole idea of this incorporating question is to imagine your best organization on its best day.
Right.
Okay?
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, oftentimes the first, when we go into an organization, we'll ask, are you all rowing in the same direction?
Mhm.
And we get typical answers are no, we're not.
Right.
And that index of consonance, if you're a musician,
Mhm.
and you think about singing from the same sheet of music, are you singing? Is everyone singing from that same sheet of music? And in most cases, this is not all cases, but you'll see in the middle, this is an example of all those people on the left taking this survey and where they ended up landing. So they're all over the place. They imagine their organization as though it were a single person doing its best work on its best day. And
Right.
they land pretty scattered, right? So you can see this index of consonance is very low. And
Do you,
this is the average. This is
do
the
you-
average of where they landed.
okay. Now, do you ever get people that really don't know, that they don't know what the, how their organization, if that's rowing in the right direction or not? Do you help them identify that?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times right, this is where we come in,
Yeah.
where most people do not know where their
Right. Right.
organization is going. The next step in the process is our step two, and that is, it's not good enough, Dale, to know whether or not you're all rowing in the same direction.
Right.
The question is, are we all rowing in the right direction?
Right. Right.
And that's resonance. Are we resonating? So the way we use this, this is analogous to, are we singing from the same sheet of music, but are we singing music that people want to pay for, listen to, and come and hear?
Right.
And
Right.
and the whole idea there is, if you're thinking about this as a North Star for your organization, if you jump in that boat, that fictitious boat that we're talking about,
Mhm.
and end up rowing in some other direction, that's not going to help you as an organization.
Right.
So we end up with step three, which is the alignment. Are we all rowing in the right direction? And we have that average of where everyone landed, which I showed you a couple slides ago.
Mhm.
We go into a meeting that we call an index, or I'm sorry, it's a consensus role target meeting, where
Okay. Okay.
we get everyone in the organization to imagine what they ought to be as an organization, right?
Mhm.
So it's not good enough to have an average. Where do we really believe we ought to be? And we close that gap,
Right.
right, between those two areas.
Interesting.
Now, what does this do for an organization? I mean, a lot of people think, well, geez, this is really wonderful to get everyone rowing in the same direction.
Right. Right.
But it increases employee engagement. It increases profitability. It reduces a lot of those silos that we talk about, the passive aggressive behavior that oftentimes companies end up following. You work in these really tight silos where you're not working together as an organization.
Right. Right. Well, and so I mean, these numbers are very, very powerful. I mean, people pay a lot of money. Companies pay a lot of money to get these kinds of results, and from consultants, from trainers, from those types of things. Um, so that means this is really, really incredible, and it's, as we said, irrespective of the size of the organization. So this kind of approach can save a lot of money in fees.
Well, here's what's interesting. When you look at the Gallup Q12 study, which comes out the State of the American Worker comes out every 4 years.
Mhm.
Um, the average level of engagement in an organization in the United States is around 30 or 31%, which
Okay.
means that most people are not actively engaged in the work they do.
Right.
2/3 of those people couldn't care less about the work that they're doing in an organization. That's been pretty static since 1998. When we
Wow.
go into an organization, after they've gone through the BCAT process,
Right.
aligning their people and their purpose, after about a year or so, their employee engagement numbers go up by about 100%.
Wow.
So
Wow.
so what that does is it starts to get people to work together more collaboratively. They want to work together as a team. They break down those silos that often exist in an organization. Um, they feel like there's a purpose there. all of a sudden, and people care about them. And when they're engaged in their work, it's not just about them anymore. It's about the organization. And that's what we're trying to get everyone to understand here. A lot of times I use the analogy of either the Yankees or the New England Patriots, because in those two organizations, they generally win, but it's not just about winning. It's really about following a pattern of behavior in an organization that you're really proud of. A lot of players who are playing in the Major League Baseball want to don those pinstripes. Why? Because they feel like it's an organization that cares about its people, cares about family, it cares about its players, it cares about your future. And so that's an organization that you want to be involved with or be a part of. And what we try to do is when you bring about this idea of purpose, if everyone in the organization follows through and understands what that purpose is all about, you've got a much more effective organization.
Mark, before you go, so, for-profits, nonprofits, this applies to nonprofits as well?
Absolutely. So a lot of times, we find that, especially in the nonprofit world, there might be a mission, there might be a purpose, there might be a vision, but oftentimes they do not follow what the initial mission was
Right.
put forth for, right?
Right.
So we come into the organization and, there's a lot of, I guess, disparate feelings about what the organization ought to be doing. We get everyone together and, find that purpose for the organization. I think the important part here, Dale, is that every single person in the organization is involved with this process.
Right. Right.
So it starts out with a survey, right? We go about handing out a survey, or it's an online survey, starting out with that incorporating question. Imagine your organization as, doing its best work on its best day.
Right.
We get the results of that. We go into a meeting, we determine whether or not that average is where everyone should be. What happens is, once we get to that consensus roll target, you can land on 72 different places on our map.
Right.
And I want you to imagine BCAT as though it were a disc model, but for companies.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Or Myers-Briggs, but for companies. Though there are attributes that fall out of where you land as an organization, where your purpose is. So there's behavior, there's attitude, there's language, and there's graphics and visuals. So imagine those commandments, right? This is who we are as an organization. This is what we determine we are as an organization. We then go around to each and every individual in the organization and we say, listen, here are the 10 or 12 commandments, let's say, that we believe in. This is who we are as an organization. And they're not the platitudes that you often hear. And I don't mean to, trivialize some of those things, but you'll hear oftentimes, well, we're trustworthy, we're honest, we have integrity. Everyone says that. It sounds like you can either be SEAL Team 6 or the Girl Scouts. It doesn't really have any differentiation there.
Right.
What falls out of the attributes from this result are very specific behavioral characteristics that everyone can follow. So we have those commandments, and then we go around to each and every individual and say, what are the 2 or 3 things that you might be able to do every day that will get you closer to that North Star, right? Closer to that roll target that we talked about. And it's observable behavior. It's not like, okay, Dale, you're my boss. And I said, I promise to listen better.
Right.
I'll be a better listener.
Right.
Well, it's not good enough for me to do that. What I need to do is say, when Dale Caldwell speaks to me, maybe I should jot down what he said. Maybe I should repeat that back to what he meant or what he said, and understand really what he meant.
Right.
And then maybe I'll go back to my desk and type it out so that I feel a little bit better about our conversation.
Mhm.
That's being a better listener. That's observable behavior that you can show some of your colleagues and your coworkers. That shows me that I want to be a teammate.
Right.
That says to me, look, I'm here to break down these silos. I'm here to work together as a teammate and collaborate more so. You know, a lot of times we see this happen in sales organizations, Dale, where, you know, we have sales trainers who go out and they train individual salespeople,
Right.
but there's a sales team and the team has to succeed, right? You're trying to succeed as a team. Yes, you're competing with one another. But what we've done in the past is we go into a sales organization and say, listen, who are we when we're doing our best work on our best day? Just as a sales team, we have to work together. Yes, I have to help you, Dale, make your goal, make your quota. I've got to do the same. But I want to try to lift up every other person in that group so that they can be, you know, they can meet their sales quota and their sales goals.
Right.
So, you know, the team succeeds as a whole.
So let's break that down. One, we do have a question about single shingles, about a solo. Is there a way that solos could come together to work on it? I mean, you know, one person businesses. Is there a way a solo practitioner can benefit?
It's tough with a solopreneur, but we can trick the system into, don't forget, it's a scientific based system. So we can trick the system and have the person, you know, in this case, you know, Sarah Jane can take the survey twice and imagine her organization as though we're a single person doing its best work on its best day. You know, we've done that before. So you kind of trick the organization, you know, trick the system because you have to end up with an average.
So I mean, there are a lot of people who are really interested in this idea of brand and culture. You know, how do we, you know, because everyone talks about brand, it's marketing. If you've got the right brand, people are going to buy from you. That's all you need. And so, you know, so and they get so hyped on how sexy your brand is, you know, and you know, and forget that people are behind that. So some of the examples, because I think that would be real helpful as you talk about. I love the sales example. I've worked with sales teams. They think of themselves as individuals. So you're creating a team. They're a separate entity in and of themselves. What have been some of the hurdles you've seen that they've overcome by using this process in sales?
Well, first of all, the one thing I want to make sure everyone understands that brand is everything. Brand is everything you do. It's not the logo. It's not your mark. It's everything. It's the way you answer the phone. It's the way you speak to people. It's everything. So connecting brand and culture, aligning brand and culture is critical. It's people and purpose, right? Imagine it as people and purpose.
Right.
One of the biggest hurdles that we've overcome or tried to overcome in organizations like that, Dale, is that level of reticence, you know, where people say, you know, I can't do this, or I cannot buy into this. We've done some very, very large programs where people just kind of self-select out of the process because, you know, this organization is marching toward a purpose and they've been in some cases hiding, you know, and not, you know, flying under the radar in a sense. So now that they're being held to account, you know, they self-select out.
Right.
That's an obstacle. A lot of the other obstacles are, you know, frankly, leadership. You'll see oftentimes the leaders would rather have a chaotic situation in their facility because, you know, they don't want everyone marching in the same direction. They want it to be sort of chaotic, I guess, and they're not willing to make that commitment. This is a commitment. Don't forget. I mean, when you decide that you're going to align your people and your purpose or your brand and your culture, it takes an effort. It takes time. It takes leadership. It takes a lot of communication. It takes caring for everyone in the organization. So,
but do they have to like each other, Mark? I mean, you know, most businesses, it's about business. Can you do that if you have people at odds? If you have very different personalities doing very different jobs, how do you get them to row in the same direction?
hey, listen, you know, you played sports. I played sports. I mean, you don't have to like every teammate that you work with. I mean,
Right.
but the
Right.
bottom line is that if we all succeed as an organization, that's great, right? If we all participate in that success, that's all we care about. I don't have to like you. I mean, you know, oftentimes if I was playing the outfield and I threw the ball to the second baseman and he turned around and relayed it to the catcher,
Mhm.
that's all I cared about. Just
Right. Right. Right.
make the plays.
Right.
So yeah, we run into that a lot. I mean, where people are not fond of each other, but we take we take we take the emotion away from this because it's really about the team or the organization.
Right.
If people start to focus on the team and the organization, a lot of those emotional, problems sort of go away.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
So just so the audience knows, we have two ways. There's a Q&A section or the chat. If you have any particular questions, I have a million questions, but I don't want to monopolize the questions. I've seen a couple here. So Mark, as you look at different industries and you look at different personalities, and you've done this with over 9,000 organizations, are there other people doing this, or are they just doing kind of training and those kinds of things? Have you seen anything kind of like this?
I think what we've seen. My partner is Al Cini. I love him. He's a great man and really the brains behind the IP on the BCAT process. And Al and I have done a tremendous amount of research over the last 8+ years, and we haven't seen organizations do exactly what we do. They do
Right.
bits and pieces of it, Dale. And they're common names in the world of business. The EOS, tractions, scaling up, et
Right.
cetera. I mean,
Right.
but our organization, and we're not knocking them at all, but we make sure that every single person in the organization is involved and included in the process.
Mhm.
Everyone has a voice. Back to my analogy about singing from the same sheet of music, every person in that choir has a voice, and we want that voice heard. And that's the whole idea here behind the process. It's everyone in this process is a part of it.
Well,
We
I
leave
think
no
that's
one behind.
the um, so how has the remote working? And again, this is we're talking about BCAT, but we're really talking about a new way of looking at branding and culture. So it's beyond just a product. It's really a new approach. And so I see a question here: how has remote working affected the success of the BCAT process?
That is a great question. We have a video that explains that, and thanks for that, Connie. You know, imagine your organization, even if you're in front of your computer at your desk at home, right? So let's put on a hat, right? And let's say we're BCAT partners, regardless of where we are. When we walk into a physical building, there's a culture. When we get in front of our computer in the morning, we put that hat on, there's a culture. It's the same culture. And I know it's a little bit difficult, and it has been very, very difficult with the interaction, the face-to-face, getting to know people, talking around the water cooler. Those things are missing. But the culture of the organization should remain intact, Connie. It's the whole idea here is that, regardless of where we are during work hours, that's the way we act. One of the things I want to say about the Yankees is that when you look at their uniforms, they have that interlocking NY on the front. They have no name on the back. It's not about them individually. It's about the team. It's about the organization. So imagine that when you're in front of your computer, the culture should be the same. Now, there's ways to break that down and have some fun and have some water cooler talk without any, specific agenda. And those things start to work for people on Zoom. Just sit around. What'd you watch on Netflix last night, Dale? What'd you have for dinner last night? And we have these conversations so that it breaks down those barriers since you're the CFO of the organization, I can't approach you. But if we're on Zoom and we're talking about Netflix, all of a sudden I see you as another person. That's how that gets broken down.
So Mark, just going back to now, I was born in Boston, so it's hard for me to
Oh my
give
goodness.
the Yankees credit. But one of the things I'll say about the Yankees is, as you said, there's no name on the back of their uniform, yet the most famous players in history are Yankee players.
Right.
And so I think that's such a perfect model that by not putting yourself first and working for the team, you actually you become more famous, you become more successful than you would if it's all about you. And
Yep.
and that basic philosophy it's amazing that more people don't understand that. If you look at almost any kind of organization, when you work together, the stars come out of that. Success breeds success.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, Denny made a comment about liking our comments about linking brand and culture. Thank you for that comment. You know, it's been talked about a lot. Remember, the word brand is really kind of a new phenomenon. I mean, you know, we used to brand cattle back in the 1800s, and that's where the whole idea of brand came from. But brand, you know, people started to think about brand as just the mark, just the logo, but that's not what it is. And then linking it with culture, you know, it's really delivering on your brand promise, right? So I'm not going to pick on anyone, but imagine a bank, right, that says, we're America's most convenient bank. I don't know who that might be, but let's say they're America's most convenient bank. And when you stand in line on a Saturday or a Friday afternoon, it takes you a half hour to get into the bank, you know, before COVID.
Mhm.
That's not convenient. So
Mhm.
you're not delivering on that brand promise. Or if you're fly the friendly skies and you're tearing people out of an airplane because they're in the wrong seat, that's not friendly. I'm sorry. So it's delivering on that promise is really what we're trying to get every organization to do and to follow.
Have you helped organizations change their brand by working with them and realize, hey, we could be a different brand and we should be a different brand, and it would help us more? Have you done that?
Absolutely. Sure. I mean, we don't do that. We don't do that work. We turn that over to a partner like a you know, a creative agency or a marketing agency or whatever. But what we've given them is this guideline to say, this is really who we are as an organization. I mean, we actually worked with a branding company
Mm.
about a year or so ago, Al and I, and they changed their brand as a result of going through BCAT. So, you know, very, very interesting kind of a process here.
So here, Patricia asked, how does a person handle, this is a great question, how does a person handle working for an organization that is misaligned, but the leadership is unaware and unattached from helping develop the North Star for the organization?
Great. Thanks, Patricia. Appreciate that question. Look, that's kind of tough. I mean, what you need to do is continue to ask internally, plant these little seeds in the organization. And there should be a flag bearer in that organization, a brand ambassador in a sense. You plant those seeds little by little by saying things like, you think we're rowing in the same direction? Do you think we're all on the same page? Do you think we're all, you know, sort of rowing in the same direction here or not? And, you know, as you get the leadership to start thinking that you're probably not, maybe they need to do some self-examination as to what is going on in the organization. You know, it's really hard. A lot of people don't know what culture is. They'll bring in Taco Tuesday, Pizza Friday, you know, ping pong tables, paintball, those sorts of things. That is not culture. That is a perk, and it lasts for a short period of time and then it goes away. So the whole idea is to follow we call it a North Star or a role target. You've got to follow a purpose. I don't want to get too religious here, but you look at someone like Rick Warren, who wrote a book a while back called A Purpose-Driven Life.
Right.
If you are purpose-driven for who you are, there are certain things you will do in life and certain things you will not do in life. We try to do the same exact thing for organizations by giving them the tools to say, listen, this is who we are as an organization. This is how we behave as an organization. This is our attitude. This is sort of the language that we use. We give them real specific guidelines on the sort of language that they use. This is the graphics we use. It's a consistency amongst our website, our emails, etc. It's a level of consistency. And, that proves to be very helpful when it comes to all those statistics that I talked about earlier.
Well, so one of the mistakes I see, and we do a lot of consulting with businesses, is this focus on money, at the expense of people. They say, we're trying to maximize profits. We're going to, work people. We can always hire new people, especially now when people have a glut and they have an opportunity. It's a hirer's market because a lot of people are looking for a job and they don't understand that. And so I don't know, do you have a book coming out? Are you gonna put this? Because I think it makes so much sense. And you show the numbers that you showed about increased engagement and all those numbers should convince anybody they need to do something, around branding and culture. So
yeah, that's really funny you ask about that because everyone else has written the book and then they go out and preach about the book. We're doing it exactly the opposite. We're going to go out. We've gone out. We're helping organizations find their purpose and align their people to their purpose, and then we'll write the book later. But you talk about employee turnover, Dale, and the cost of hiring a new employee is tremendous. Depending on the organization and where you're coming from, we decrease the turnover rate in organizations because they want to be part of someone or an organization that feels like they care. There is a purpose in the organization. So rather than, caring about the profits, we won't work with an organization that all they care about are the profits. We care about organizations and work with organizations that care about the people in the organization. The profit will come and the valuation of the organization will go up. We've had an internal debate about this amongst our staff about whether or not we would guarantee, and I mean guarantee, that over a 2-year period, if we do a pre and post valuation on your organization, we will guarantee you that the organization's value will rise as a result of doing this, if you follow the process. And that is powerful. So if you care about just money and about profits, we're not for you. But if you care about your people and you care about your purpose and realize that the money will follow, the profitability will follow, the valuation of the organization will go up, then you can, reach out to us and we will help you.
And this is the time when companies are really starting to think about, I don't know whether they're really doing something about diversity, equity, and inclusion. In fact, I did a presentation today for a chamber about leadership, and we ended up at the end talking about, about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so BCAT, and as we're dealing, and that's obviously very people focused and so on. How does it align with doing this kind of diversity work? And talk about that.
Great question. Thank you for that. So as I said earlier, Dale, everyone in the organization is included. So by its nature, there is a level of inclusivity. What we preach constantly with BCAT is that we want to hear from everyone in the organization because you come from a different background. You come from a different culture. You come from a different spot in life. So your ideas are going to help us solve problems in the organization far better than me sitting here thinking about the solution of a problem. So I want that level of inclusivity around the table. I want to hear everyone's voice. From the standpoint of a diverse organization, it speaks to the same thing. I want people in the organization that have diverse backgrounds, that come from a diverse climate, because for the same exact reason. We've dealt with an organization that's a cybersecurity company. And there's obviously there's bad actors out there, right? People are trying to hack into your server, your software, etc. If you have 4 or 5 people sitting around the table that come from the same background, you're not going to solve those problems. Trust me, because you're not thinking like the bad actors. You want people around the table who can bring thoughts to the table that will solve that problem, solve that mystery, right? So we're looking for, we by its nature, BCAT helps with diversity, inclusion. Um, it just has everyone involved in the organization.
It's funny. I interviewed a guy named Warren Thompson on Wednesday. He is he's African American. He's the largest Black owner of restaurant chains and hotels in the country. Just a great guy. And we were talking about. He said, when you hire the best people, diversity takes care of itself. And one of the things that I see that Denny Klein was saying, that ethics is part of this as to why they don't. He says it should be natural. What we're talking about, everybody should be thinking about this, yet most people don't. And the ethics and other things come in, that they hire their brother, their sister, their best friend, instead of really looking at hiring the best people. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that once you get to remember the conversation I was having earlier about those attributes falling out of where you land as an organization. Well, there are specific behavioral characteristics that come out of that. So when you talk about ethics, as I said earlier, if you have a purpose, if you have a purpose-driven life, there's certain things that you will do, certain things you will not cross the line and do. Okay, it's the same thing with business. With this cybersecurity organization, for example, 80% of the hacks that happen are internal. So we're working with an organization so that the people that, when you align your brand and culture, they start to care about the business. So if they see something happening that is a little bit off color, guess what's going to happen, Dale? They're going to say something to someone, right? But if you're disengaged, if you're one of the 70% that couldn't care less about your organization, and you see something happening that might be a little bit off color, you're not going to say anything. So the whole idea here is to prevent some of these, black swan events from happening, in a sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I'm laughing here because my daughter is putting in the microwave. Whenever the microwave goes on, my internet gets messed up. So I cut out for a second. So this is the home. Having Zoom at home.
And the idea of hiring, as Denny was saying earlier, when you start to have that level of commitment as an organization, you're going to look for people that are part of that. It's not like, okay, we have this culture, we're only going to hire people that are going to fit the culture.
Right.
You bring people in. Look, I know you don't like the Yankees. I hate to keep bringing this up.
I don't mind that.
Listen, I feel bad about this whole Boston, New York thing. No, I really don't.
It makes it look better.
I really could. So, you take a guy like A-Rod, right? When he came to the Yankees, Dale, do you think he fit into that organization?
No,
he didn't. He didn't fit. He became a Yankee because I think over the course of time, what ended up happening was, he got suspended for doing something bad, right? And then he realized at some point that, look, I better fall in line with what's going on here, because
right. So he may be suspended for doing something bad again, but that's a whole other tabloid discussion.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if you followed it.
With he and J-Lo,
the alleged affair. So he may get suspended once again. So, so and Denny made another comment about ethics and hiring people. So, say you're a business, you've heard this conversation today, Mark. Yeah, this sounds real interesting. I'd love to learn more. How do you learn more? What should someone do?
You can reach out to Al or me. Our emails are really simple, Dale. It's al.cini, CINI, @getbcat.com, or mark.iorio. That's IORIO. Don't mess it up with the cookie. It's IORIO @getbcat.com.
Yeah.
Or just follow us on LinkedIn. Send us a note. Carrier pigeon. Anything works.
So I talked to you, and so I'm ready to do something. What's the first thing you do with my company? I have 25 employees. Say I have 10 employees.
Yep.
And what walk me through, what would you do?
Yeah. So we come in, we will get the names of every employee, their email addresses, and then we'll talk to everyone about this incorporating question. We want them to imagine the organization as though we're a single person doing its best work on its best day. We send everyone a link, right? It's really simple. You just do it from home. You do it from home or your home office or whatever. 15 minutes, Dale, right? They're word associations. So imagine your organization as though we're a single person doing its best work, etc. All those words that you think about when you're thinking about this organization end up in the queue. So we get the results.
Right.
It's 15 minutes. It's really simple.
Wow.
It's really simple. And then we'll do a chat, a Zoom call with you and your team and determine where everyone landed. We'll show you the results. And then we'll do that consensus roll target if you don't believe that average is right. And we'll go through the process from there. Once we get to that consensus roll target, that is where you land. That's the purpose of the organization. We will then give you a brand positioning statement that says, basically, here's who we are. You can tweak it, and we'll go through it with you, but you can tweak it, but you've got to tweak it very, very carefully because there's a formula in the language.
Right.
There's a specific formula in the language. Then we will say to each person, once you get all the commandments together, right? That's the next step. These are the 10 or 12 commandments for the Dale Caldwell Company.
Right.
Then we go to each and every individual in the organization. This is step 4, where we say, hey, Dale and others, what are the 2 or 3 things that you believe you can do every day to be more like this North Star for the Dale Caldwell Company?
Right.
And then it's observation. It's ongoing coaching, Dale, where people are just like your tennis game, right? If I teach you how to hit a backhand, I don't let you go for another 6 months and then come back and say how you doing.
Right.
I try to keep on you every week, every 2 weeks or so. So it's an ongoing process. It'll take time for us to get that backhand the way you need it. You need to get it. Just like it'll take time for us to get the behavior of the organization to begin to change so that North Star is within sight.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So now Chris Coates has another good question. As you align your brand and culture, you also need to reinforce your rewards and recognition to reinforce it. How do you help companies ensure that they are rewarding those that buy in and weeding out those that do not care, since some aspects may not totally be tied to typical performance metrics?
Chris, that's an awesome question. We have 5 pillars in how we do work with BCAT. It is connecting the head with the heart, leadership from the top, performance and appraisal. You have to have performance and appraisal in there because it's all baked into who we are as people, employees of the organization. If you don't care, if you see leaders don't care, you got to you got to exit the organization. It's not, and if you can't get the leader of the organization to understand that performance and rewards and appraisal, ongoing. This is not once a year. This is ongoing. If I work for you, Dale, you and I should be talking on a fairly regular basis, you giving me support or constructive criticism on the things that I am trying to do to become a better version of myself every day. If I become a better version of myself every day, then the organization will become a better version of itself if we all work together as a team, right?
Well, the evaluations, as you know, I mean, very few organizations do evaluations well because people are scared to do that. They do that when they have to do it, and do it every quarter. But it's really, as you said, an ongoing process. And so talk a little bit about how do you work with companies that have just a bad evaluation process or no evaluation process?
Well, I mean, again, it's those things. Look, if I were to say to you, Dale, I'm going to do these 2 or 3 things every day, right? I'm making a commitment to you as my boss. I'm making a commitment. You're not telling me what to do.
Mhm.
I'm saying to you, I'm making a commitment to you, Dale,
Mhm.
person to person here. So when you're doing performance and evaluations, what you ought to be doing is determining whether or not I'm performing in accordance to what I promised. Not some made up form that we put together that says, oh, you've got to do this, that, and the other thing. Well, what if that doesn't align with who I am or what the organization does? If I make a commitment to you, then what we ought to be doing is saying, are you following through with all the promises that you made?
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, and I think, and I see there's another question again about leadership. So I see some people are working with organizations whose leadership may not quite get this. Have you seen a change in an organization where at first they said, well, we're not really interested in this kind of stuff. This is too soft. We're focused on the hard numbers. We're focused on revenue. We're not focused on people. And then they realize they need to focus on people, which will drive the revenues. Have you seen a change at all?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen organizations. It's funny you asked that question because, and thanks, Patty, for that. You see oftentimes that if, once you do the survey, let's say you have back to your 10 person company, we've been in organizations, Dale, where the CEO is the outlier, and the CEO realizes, outlier meaning there's a cluster of results in one quadrant of the map, and the CEO's up in the other quadrant. The CEO is 2 things have happened. One is the CEO realizes that the group is correct, and he or she needs to become more like their role target.
Right.
The other way is that the CEO is an outlier, and there's a cluster in another quadrant, and the cluster recognizes that the CEO is actually closer to the role target, and they have to move as a group.
Right.
So when you're in a toxic environment, it's difficult. It's like I said earlier. I think you have to go around asking people these questions and planting these seeds in the organization that says, do you really think we're all rowing in the same direction, or do we think we're all singing from the same sheet of music?
Right.
If the people in there are narcissistic, sorry, they're not going to get it. Chances are that organization is not going to change unless they recognize that there's a problem.
Yeah.
They have to recognize there's a problem.
Yeah. There are a couple of questions. And so, Mark, as I mentioned before, and I see some people asking some more questions. And some of the people have heard me over the time talk about this idea called entrepreneur zones. And so we had developed this idea of entrepreneur zones for main streets that are suffering, for poor, economically challenged areas. And so we got the state, the governor, and the New Jersey Economic Development Authority to approve this idea of creating entrepreneur zones. And so I'm chairing this committee. So I'm chairing the committee at 1:00 today, Mark. So I'm gonna leave in a minute or so and let you answer some of these questions. But this is such a big deal. It's our first meeting, and I'm chairing this group. So I'm gonna do this and go to a meeting in Trenton. But the idea is to really grow entrepreneurship in communities that are struggling right now. And I'm just so happy, and use tax credits and other financial vehicles to really help entrepreneurs grow. And my hope is that we can use BCAT to help those entrepreneurs get their people together so that they can be that much more successful. So I made you a host, so I'm going to leave and go to this meeting in Trenton be via Zoom, and you can take it over. I see there are a couple of questions in the box. So
thanks, Dale.
Thank you all very much. And Mark, thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Good luck with your meeting today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So Linda, good question. When you say leaders go because they weren't on board, what we've seen is that leaders often, the good leaders, and in the case that we were describing, or I was describing earlier, is that some of these good leaders recognize that, the rest of the organization is actually correct and they're off base. So they make the change toward, where the organization ought to go. It's not that they leave the organization, but they recognize that, what they're trying to what they're trying to do as a leader is probably off base. Thanks, Denny. So if anyone else has a question or wants to raise their hand, please go ahead. Thank you for all these awesome comments and these questions. I really appreciate your time. I can put my contact information in the chat here so that each of you can reach me if you'd like. It's mark.iorio@getbcat.com. If you want to go to the website, it's obviously getbcat.com. So thank you all for attending. This was a great show today, great episode. I appreciate Dale doing this for us. And please get in touch if you need any help with your brand, your culture, aligning your people, or your purpose. Thank you, Patty. Take care, all. Bye-bye.